So my name is Elizabeth Wallner, and I am with the Joint Special Populations Advisory Committee. As we start talking about equity, and then one, please. You want one? Oh, sure. Sure, why not? Okay. All right. So before we start, let me just introduce our organization a little bit and what we do and where we come from in terms of equity and so on and so forth. So we are the California Joint Special Populations Advisory Committee. And this is an organization that works specifically with Perkins-funded programs. All of the career tech ed programs would be in there, and as included in that is the ICT program. It is unique in the country because it is K-12, adult ed, and community college, as opposed to most of the states have, one for each of the organizations. It turns out that the feds like it a lot because they're actually trying to collaborate and try to build those bridges between them. And okay, so the committee is comprised of 30 members from K-12, community colleges, and business, labor, and industry. If you all are interested in participating with us, we're always looking for folks who are within the community colleges or K-12 or businesses. It's about a 2-year commitment, so on and so forth, and most of it is virtual, 3 meetings a year in person in Sacramento, which we pay for. So, I'm not entirely certain where the slides are at this point. Okay. So our mission is to promote equity and success in career and tech ed courses, all of the courses. We do that with professional development, product development, as well as giving you resources and strategies, which is what I've given you. None of them are particularly related specifically to today, but they're things that that folks have asked for throughout the years that we've been doing this. So I'm just going to go over them really briefly. One of the quick questions, how many of you have worked with WASC on your campuses? WASC accreditation. It's a whole bunch of fun, right? It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of details, there's a lot of different things that you have to meet. So what we did is we sat down with the WASC board and we said, people are jumping through so many different hoops, so let's get the hoops lined up so that you can jump through one hoop and meet the requirements of of different organizations or groups or requirements. And so this document is produced with the WASC board for the community colleges. We also have one from K-12 if you're involved with K-12. That if you're looking to meet this requirement of WASC, you can do this and you'll meet both Perkins requirements and the WASC requirement. And basically it's a cheat sheet of different ways to serve your students so that they're more effectively served and so that they're more successful in their programs, which of course is the intent we hope. This we'll talk about later, but it's for students, it's student directed. This one is all of just different tips and things on ways and resources. I'm a real big fan of giving out resources and giving you as much information because whether you go to a 3-day conference or a 1-day workshop or what have you, it has to be an ongoing process, right? A lot of what we're doing now is we're starting to engage with schools on a year-long or multi-year basis in creating change and getting teams to create change in their campuses. So this one has, and it's got some really great resources on the back. They're very hard to read. They're like, what, font 4, something like that, font 3. So they're all live on our website, which is JSPAC.org, on all the slides, JSPAC.org. And then this one is sort of an advocacy piece. One of the pieces that we see a lot is we all think we need to advocate, but we kind of don't know how. We don't have talking points. We don't really know what to say to folks. A lot of people don't know even who to talk to. So this is just really simple ways to talk to business, legislatures, and businesses, and also other educators. And one of the things, which I'm sure is no surprise to you, came out of a study done by Harvard, Pathways to Prosperity, that says that 56% of all the jobs in America being created right now don't require a 4-year degree. They require post-secondary education for sure, but not necessarily a 4-year degree. So there's a combination of both. So that's the resources that I brought with me today. There is a plethora of different resources that we have developed that are all available online, but they're individual to what you all are doing. So you can find them. Here's all of our information. I'm Elizabeth, and there's my contact information. Another speaker, committee monitors, and then fiscal management. Actually, Stan Schroeder has retired. Lucky guy. Don't know who it's going to be. And then this is another organization that we work with called the Special Populations Collaborative, California Community College Special Populations Collaborative. And they have a lot of resources as well as core indicator information available online. How many of you are familiar with core indicators? Not just one. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about them and so on and so forth. Okay, so before we go on, let's start at the front of the room and just tell me a little bit who you are, why you're here, what you hope to learn, what you know or you don't know, sort of where we are. So I can sort of tailor things a little bit. So we can talk about this. Usually these workshops are 3 hours to 6 hours. So start with here.
My name is Jenny Malika. I'm working with the Career Ladders Project on a study on diversity in the ICT workforce and representation of Latino and African American.
Okay, so your recruitment is more in terms of ethnicity as opposed to gender. Okay.
Veronica Sanchez Casal, Senior Program Associate at Career Ladders Project.
Okay. I think we emailed, didn't we? We have emailed, okay.
Teresa Rowland with the Career Ladders Project, formerly with specific campuses in California community colleges, gender equity, coordinator and grants when those used to be around at the California community colleges. One thing that would help me today is to understand more around foster youth. CLP runs a foster youth initiative. We're working with California community colleges, and I'd like to learn a lot more about leveraging Perkins dollars for youth and the involvement in CTE.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Perkins and bring that up. We don't have a lot of information right now in here about foster, but if you email me, I can follow up and send you some more resources as well. But we'll talk about more about that, okay? So foster and okay. Well, you're in the corner?
Richard Godian at Lonnie College. I teach that. I'm also very much involved with our high school programs. A lot of fun little.
So the bridges between the two. Okay. All right.
Jeff Larson, I teach a CTE program in Wallner High School, and I work with the district CTE as an IT pathway coordinator.
Okay. So you're a high school. So remember that this resource is also available online with the K-12.
Dan Cannon, I work at Galileo High School. I'm also with the
Okay. I think those are really nice people here. I'm so excited. There's actually about 3 times as many of you as have in the years past, so I'm really excited. This is extraordinary.
My name is Sherry Stickman. I'm also with the Career Ladders Project, and but also working on an NSF program with City College of San Francisco that we've just been funded for.
Okay, what is the NSF target?
It's African American and Latino students who are underrepresented in ICT.
Okay, woefully underrepresented, yeah? Yeah, kind of a little frightening. Okay.
My name is Gloria Hubbard. I'm with American River College in Sacramento
in
computer science. And I'm also part of a team that's working to satisfy part of a grant for underserved populations in California called Living with Technology, a part of California Connect, and basically developing learning materials for underserved populations.
Okay. American River, okay.
My name is Ingrid Dahl, and I work at the Bay Area Video Coalition. We're a 36-year-old media arts nonprofit, and we serve 14 to 24-year-olds through a bridge program, which is also funded by the National Science Foundation. And it really works to support low-income minorities to make sure that they're getting tech knowledge.
Okay.
I'm Mark Dempsey. I'm from Collin College in Dallas, and I'm part of the NSF grant. One of the goals of that grant is to address underserved populations in IT.
This is so great. Gotta love NSF, man. That's awesome.
I teach ESL for San Jose Community College. I have taught 13 years of adult ed under the Perkins grant in the past, and the extra program.
I was going to say, you must be in a tenuous position, but not really.
No,
you just got asked. Yes.
So, but I used to transition students from ESL and adult ed, vice versa, and you know, losing the tools I have is really difficult. I'm a great online person.
So what is it that they're doing now with adult ed students?
Nothing.
Nothing at all. They're just pretending that they don't exist.
There's no program. No, they're using the money in other K-12.
Right. Well, it's not really K through 12, let's face it.
Adult ed is K-12.
It's within the CDE, but it's really,
The people are older.
right, exactly, so they're not the 12.
Yeah, but I have people with 15 education or less coming in my class.
Oh, good Lord Almighty. That is horrifying.
I teach adults in high adult school, LAUSD, and I've been teaching 10 years, and business education and computer science.
In Los Angeles?
Yes.
And they have non-extra program?
School got closed last June, the whole adult school, and they're opening in August. So
Oh, they're reopening, they are reopening?
Yeah, that was very, like, 1/3 less, the classes. And so, and I've been teaching to the community college, West LA College.
Okay.
And I'm interested in this because I've always been, in adult school, my council always been sending special, deaf students or slightly blind students to my class, and so I work with them. And right now I teach West LA College adult school and another class where I have, one has people over 50, one is unemployed, and one is a mix of all Black and Latinos, and another group that's all very Hispanic, so it's all different.
It's all over.
populations.
Yeah, keeps you jumping, doesn't it?
Different,
Yeah.
qualities and challenges.
Okay.
I'm Rich Davis. I teach at Wallner College. I'm interested in increasing awareness.
Okay.
I'm new to the Wallner City College here, and I teach in the IT department. I'm interested in all the reaching non-traditional students.
By gender? So non-traditional by gender or non-traditional all of it?
All of it.
Okay, all of it.
Carrie Germain, adjunct faculty, several different colleges. Yeah, lots of students, and I just am always, I've worked on, in the past I've worked on some grants and fun, but I've always been trying to improve CTE and learning how to help the special population students.
Okay.
Joel Kamaki, White Community College. I'm division chair for White Technical Education Qualifications. I'm also department chair for Constructor Academy, which is located in the high school, like Blue Creek. I'm also a carpentry professor.
Good Lord.
And in Hawaii, we're culturally challenged there. So many things.
Okay.
Good morning, I'm Donna Lang. I am from the National Technical Institute for the Deaf. It's a College of Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. I'm associate professor in the computer department there. I am also the center director of a new ATE center called DeafTech, which stands for Technological Education Center for deaf and hard of hearing students. Our goal is to get more deaf and hard of hearing students into STEM. So we're developing resources for high school, community college, parents, counselors, and future employers.
Okay.
Dave Patrick, I teach at Learning College. All the people I teach are adults, 30 and above, retreads, people that are older than me.
Retreads, God forbid, I'm older than me.
I try to pick up new technology, and I would say that better than 60% of my class are not native born Americans. So I've got a mix of languages, test students. I have almost no women in classes. It's just everyone's an individual with different cultural and background and language issues because I teach very technical classes to a lot of jobs.
Okay. It is challenging.
Nontraditional and like the Sky Center, we deal with low-income students trying to get into the computer field.
Low-income of all ages and
all ages.
All ages.
High school and above.
High school and above. Okay.
Out of Oakland, we have about 4 campuses around the Greater Bay Area and Sacramento.
Huh. Okay. My concern, and I'm glad that I did this, is called Just the Basics. And not one of you sounds like you're just the basics kind of person. So I'm a little bit dubious about this whole presentation. So there's kind of my concern. My concern. Are there people watching this?
There is one person remote, yes.
Can we find out if they're just the basics? They logged off?
Yeah,
Yes.
CPCIS.
And he's probably not a just the basics kind of person either, is he?
I don't think so.
All right, so I'm a little bit concerned as to why you all are here. And sort of as I listen to you, I've become more concerned. How many of you are familiar, and I'm thinking that we have another workshop in the afternoon that I could switch over and do, which is a whole lot less just the basics-ish. And sounds like more of what you'd like to do, what you'd like to hear and see. But I'm going to leave it up to you. If you want to go through this very quickly, we can do that. But it's just the basics. Literally, it is just the basics. It is for folks who are coming into Perkins and don't know it. It is for people that have not done equity. That's why it's called just the basics. What? We always need to start from the basics. Okay, if you all get bored, we have the other one right here on the drive-in. We can just jump right into that one. And we start out with this anyway. So, what?
You're so flexible.
I am so flexible. I've done this. My son was like, are you nervous? And I'm like, I've done it like 3 at a time. Not anymore. Not really anymore. Okay. So Perkins legislation. Anyone not familiar with it? Who, what, why, when, and where? Okay. So Perkins legislation is a federal legislation that comes down from the powers that be, and it actually started back in the early part, actually in 1800s, as a way to create folk ed teachers and do research. And then it sort of evolved a little bit farther, and it became a way to, as they put it, bring in the folks who were immigrating and also the working poor, and bring them up as the Industrial Revolution came. And then so it's always been a transition. In the 80s, or in the actually beginning in the 60s, it transitioned into a place of equity, a way that we could give education to everybody without there being sort of this. At one point, it was really used to control wages, because if they were more well-educated folks, they could pay them less. So it became get the supply up, so get the demand up, the numbers up, so they could pay them less. So it was kind of freaky when I was reading that. I'm like, okay, this is creepy. But now we're really looking at equity, and that's what we're all here talking about. And we've been fighting this fight for a while, and unfortunately, a lot has changed and a lot has not changed. And in some ways, in the ICT world particularly, we've gone a little bit backwards. And I'll show you some data about that in a second. But so the matters of accountability are what's important in part. I'm going to go back, I think, one slide. A couple of slides. Okay. This book, the Perkins legislation, comes down from the powers that be in Washington, D.C. And then California, or you're from Texas, each of the states has to write their own answer to that. There's a couple of things. This is our state of California. It's a great document. It really answers a lot of questions, and it gives you the direction that we want to go in California with career and technical education. It's the 08 to 12 California State Plan. Well, 12 is over. We're certainly not going to get a new one this year. Probably won't get another one in 13. They're looking probably at 14. So your plans sort of roll over. So whatever you were doing, just continue that. But we have, within this Perkins, we have the 5 core indicators that deal with skill attainment, completion, program completion, graduation and persistence, placement or employment, and then participation and completion for non-traditional students, and that is by gender. I asked, are you talking non-traditional by everything else? There's a specific measure within the core indicators and within Perkins that is non-traditional by gender. Does anybody know what that mathematical calculation is?
25%.
25%. So any program that is less than 25%, no, actually not a program, a occupation that is less than 25% is considered non-traditional. So you could be doing a bang-up job in your school and have 50% females or 50% males, and it is still non-traditional. If out in the world, it's 7%, which is kind of standard. Okay, so we want folks, and the legislation requires us to look at the core indicators and use our Perkins funding, which is where it all comes down to improve and expand our programs. And that's all Perkins is really all about, is improving and expanding. And that actually, historically, has been there since the beginning of time with this. Okay, so special population students are defined as students with disabilities, displaced homemakers. Anybody can anybody define displaced homemaker?
Who works at their home manager all their lives.
Home manager, that's a great term. I like that. Home manager, I love that. Yeah, and it can be male or female, but the big difference is, and that people don't think about, is It can also be a parent whose their youngest child is aging out of the welfare system, out of the Social Security system. So that enhances the pool a lot. And in the last couple of years, this pool's grown a lot, right? Because a lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of jobs were rolled out, so on and so forth. Then we have economically disadvantaged, including foster youth, limited English proficient, single parents, and non-traditional. Okay. The Perkins Act requires that everybody has a performance goal, and that performance goal for the community colleges is set with the community colleges, and K-12 is set with the Perkins department at CDE with probably Russ Weichel and his team. And the Perkins funds are to improve and expand programs only. So if you want to hire a new teacher, you have a couple of years and then you can't fund them anymore. If you want to hire, whatever it is that you're doing, you only have a little bit of time. Okay. The things that I think you ought to know is who writes your plan. Does anybody know this? Who writes your plan on your campus? Some of you. Okay, if you don't know, you should know. How you get involved. As one person put it, if they're not involved, they're not getting much cash. Not getting any money if you're not writing it. What is your allocation process? Does everybody know their allocation process? Like how the money, when it gets to their campus, is allocated out to the different schools? It's really important. I actually had, in San Francisco a couple of years ago, a woman, I was doing sort of the same workshop, and she burst into tears. She said, I'm a woman, the dean's a woman, I can't flirt with her, I get no cash. I don't actually know. Right. There's weird ways to do it. If it's, I have 10 programs, so we're going to divide it by 10. Really not the intent of the law. Really not going to improve and enhance. A program that technology is not changing rapidly is not going to need as much as y'all's programs, right? Computers and technologies and things like that. Medical advances change so rapidly that medical programs may need a huge chunk of funding right now and then not any for 4 or 5 years. Textbooks don't change in some areas as rapidly as some other ones. So that's really important. Okay, and then what is the core indicator gap that they're addressing? The core indicators are looked at, say, for completion by every single special population. So you can go in and you can see how the single parents on your campus are doing in all of your programs. And if you see this huge number of single parents coming into your programs, and then Teresa goes back and she looks at her data and she goes, wow, none of them are actually graduating. That would be a problem. Or if you see a whole bunch of students coming into a program but not finishing it, that would be a problem. So we're going to actually look at a little bit of data. Accuracy is really important. How many of you have ever looked at your core indicator reports? A few of you say you know what they are. Okay. Sometimes they're a little bit challenged. Put it mildly. But you know who's in your classrooms, right? You know who's there. You know what the problems are. You know what the deficits are. You know what the strengths are. So if you're looking at data and it doesn't seem right, keep looking. Look at different data. Look at multiple sets of data. Look at 5 different sets of data. The same woman who said that if you're not involved, you don't get any of the cash, she also looks at 5 different sets of data to make sure that they know the entire picture out there. Okay, so we're not going to go through this right now because I already did that a little bit. But is there an equitable balance? As you're looking at your data, is it all female? Is it all male? Is it all Hispanic? Is it all Caucasian? You got to really look at it and see. Is the data disaggregated to the smallest degree, to the biggest degree, whichever way you want to look at that? Can you find out exactly who's in your classrooms and what they're doing? Does it answer the questions? And most importantly, in some ways, is are you meeting the needs of the labor market? Because if we're not, there's a problem. And what would the problems be? Not from our perspective, but the student's perspective.
They're getting prepared for jobs that don't exist.
They're getting prepared for jobs that don't exist. I cannot tell you how often I see this. Or they're underprepared for a job that do exist. So we really need to be paying attention to those. Okay, so we're going to look at data, and we're going to look at it from 2 perspectives. One is the 25-75 perspective, which is for equity, and the other is ethnicity. If you have 45% Hispanic enrollment in your district or in the area, you want to have plus or minus 45%, so between 35 and 55% enrollment in your class. If you have a 2% enrollment, there's a problem. If you have a 90% enrollment, there could be a problem. It could be, not always, but there could be problems, right? Okay, so this is actual data, looking at gender. In the CIS program, I actually took San Francisco CIS names. This is not their data. This is not their data. Let me emphasize that. But it is actual data. I just always change the names with the guilty. Okay, so if this was your data, what would you be looking at? What questions come to mind? Because this is where you all need to start. In order to change your programs, you need to start here. So if this was your data, what comes to mind?
Not enough females.
Not enough females?
That the women actually fall out as the, I mean, I'm assuming this is a course progression,
Yep.
that they fall out as the courses get tougher or more sophisticated, or that they start at 33%.
33% participation, that's huge! Wouldn't you all love to have 33% participation of either the underrepresented gender? Then they fall out to 8%. This is the fallout that would concern me the most. Here, I understand. They figure out they didn't like it, they, you know, whatever, I don't know. Could be a whole bunch of reasons. And it depends on what program it is. Okay? Here, it would concern me. This would concern me a lot. What possible reasons could there be? And think about your own programs. When you're thinking about this, what reasons would you have, would students have to leave a program at a capstone level?
It could be raising children.
They could be raising children.
Run out of money if they're single parents.
They could have run out of money, so it could be a money issue. The parenting thing, I get that, but I'm a little sick of hearing it because it turns out the dad's too, you know, and we have to start thinking about in terms of, yeah, you have a child as well, dude. So, you know, you're going to have to maybe reduce your course load on both, for the male and the female, for the dad and the mom. What?
Wait to have the next child.
Wait to have the, whatever it is. I mean, we need to be addressing this. Talk about the fact that this is an issue. Talk about the fact that we have planning, we have childcare, we have. Because particularly if they have another child, they kind of need these next courses, right? I mean, the more kids we have, the more money we need. Turns out.
I mean, I think.
You said what?
I was just going to say that I think a lot of women in ICT are discouraged. There's a lot of competition in the environment. Same-sex courses for women in computer science especially is very important.
Okay, so just separate the genders, okay.
Sometimes.
Yep. Do you see that at all ages or younger, older? Does it matter?
I've seen it because in my program we've experimented with teens and then also women 18 to 24, and they always soar. Like they do so wonderfully.
They do better. Yeah.
100% retention.
So there's still an old boys network also?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course there's an old boys network. So how do we prepare students for an old boys network? Because it exists everywhere, in school and out, right?
Yes.
So what do we do?
Well, I was going to just put the social issues aside and really focus on where our center of control is. As educators, and look at instructional strategies. So really making sure that all students are having opportunity for applied learning, small groups, work, role models, there's speakers, there's a lot of modeling and encouragement so that students can identify with who they're seeing in industry, they can relate to the content, they can become more engaged. And those are strategies that really help
women stay in. And the conversation, I think the conversation has to happen really early on, right? It doesn't start here. We already lost them. It starts up there.
And I would just add on what Teresa just said, which is that you would expect there to be some fallout with the difficulty of the courses. If you look at the number of males, it drops by 50%. It goes from 42 to 21. So you would not expect to retain 100% of the women, but you would expect it to be about 11 left. Yep. So then you need to look and see what is it that's causing the men to actually be more successful as the course work gets more challenging or whatever.
Right. Okay, so you just brought something up. You would expect to have a fallout. Is 50% a fallout that is acceptable in a program?
No, but you want the two to be comparable.
We want them to be comparable, but even if the women only even if we only lost 11 of our females and we kept the other 8 that dropped out, or 9, is 50% where you want to be? Well, you don't know that. Here's the number that you're graduating. This is the number that you need to go back and check with your labor market information and see, do I need 23 graduates or do I need 63 graduates? These folks that have taken these classes might just be better at their other jobs. They might just be better employees somewhere else. They might be just taking their classes so that they can work in their automotive shop better. You know, that they understand the billing system, whatever, I don't know. But we need to go back to our labor market information and find out, is this the number that we need to graduate? And if not, it's a retention issue overall, right? And that's why starting programs without really understanding the data is not effective. This is why really understanding what it is we're looking at, okay? In terms of instructional strategies, that's really important. In terms of talking to your students from day one, it's really important. We know that women self-select out at an alarming rate, much higher than men, boys and men. We know that in really high-level courses at, you know, MIT and Rutgers and, you know, all over the place, where both women and men, Hispanics and Blacks and Caucasians and everybody else, everybody gets in. Clearly they're competent, they're qualified. We know that the underrepresented groups will self-select out and leave sooner. Because for some reason, I don't know if it's cultural or nurture or nature, boys only really need to know about 50% of something before they'll continue. They don't have to have a 99% to go on to that next class. They just don't. I passed the class by 1 percentage point. I'm good. I'll keep going. Literally, I have 51% of the information. I'm good. Or whatever the cutoff is. They have that 1% passing. They're okay. Women are not going to continue. But should they? Sure. Because all of that information may still continue, you know, I'm the kind of person, if I took my finals 8 weeks after my last class, I would get 100%. It takes a while for my little brain to percolate. I just ruminate things, they go on and on and on. I'm much smarter 8 weeks after the finals. Oh God, I didn't have to miss that question. I understand that now, but it takes me a while. So there's no saying that in the third class, they're not going to cement the knowledge from the second class. But they're already not, they haven't taken the third class because they only got 1% above passing, or 7%, or 10%. So we need to start having these kinds of conversations. Like, you know, you just don't have to. Women won't apply for a job unless they know like 90% of the information on the, you know, minimum qual, or not the minimum qualifications, but on the job description. Again, a guy will know 50% go, yeah, I'm good. I'll learn the rest on the job. What a great bonus. They don't have guessed the job, but they're going to apply for it. We don't even apply for it. So we need to start having these conversations. Okay, and here is one, again, same information, basically. This is actual data. This is different CTE programs by ethnicity. Looking at the issues, looking at the data, what issues come to mind? Oh, let me explain. You have a 28.34% enrollment in the district or in the area of Hispanic students. Could be language issues. What else could it be? Teresa mentioned something earlier that,
I was going to say, just cultural background.
Sure, it's role models, right? It's role models. We all, if you've never seen a Hmong female firefighter, you're not going to actually go, hey, you okay, I'm Hmong, I'm female, I weigh 92 pounds when I'm soaking wet and dressed in pink. Other people to be a firefighter. There has to be some idea there. There has to be some level of self-efficacy, right? But I can actually succeed within this environment. So if we don't show anyone, because are Hispanics less intelligent than other people? Can they succeed once we give them language, once we account for language? Do they succeed well? Sure. Yeah, they sure. So we really need to start looking at this. Okay, so what about this data would bugs me and should bug you?
The computer science.
The computer science, absolutely. There's only 4%.
Because if you just, there's only 2 categories, right, which are plus or minus 10%, agriculture and computer science. If you think of high skill, high wage jobs that are family self-sustaining, computer science, between those two, probably computer science would be the quickest track to a high wage
Ag is hugely successful.
career.
Ag pays really well, actually. It's phenomenally. Why are Hispanic students going into Ag? Stereotype, yeah, sure. Well, they all think it's what? I'm going to go to school, pick in the field. Been there, done that. Not going to happen.
Tell me about the career occupation.
Right. So tell me about the career occupations. Expand my knowledge. Animal science. You know, there's all sorts of different things. Okay. What else? These two careers in particular. Looking at those two, what? What?
They know those.
They know those careers, and you have the numbers are aggregate between male and female. Who's in your automotive and who's in your nursing? Exactly. So you really need. That's why you really need to disaggregate this data by gender as well as ethnicity, right? I would also disaggregate it by age. I would disaggregate it by where they were born. I would, you know, for me, what? Give me an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm a happy girl. But really, so you can paint a picture. And of course, you're going to get to the point where the numbers are very small. So sometimes you get a little bit sidetracked with it. But okay, so what do the students need to hear that all of these careers are open to them? So we need to spend really time in providing role models that are Hispanic or are female or are young or are old or whoever it is that was missing from our classrooms. This is the labor market, the wage data. So obviously IT is significantly higher than anything else. Okay, so here's a filter of data that I threw in there just because I think it's really cool. These are bachelor's degrees earned by women in selected fields 1966 to 2000. And this is sort of like in the years, for the decade, 66, 76, 86, 96, 2000. This is computer science. What's up here, folks?
Wow. The impact center's been a lot.
Boom. Total tank. What is up with that? Everything else. This one's gone down, math has gone down. What's going on? My thesis is that the math and the computer science are related.
Yeah, well, I think one factor for computer science is globalization. That's a factor there. This is the U.S.
Yes. It's in the National Science Center. You know, I don't.
I think it's U.S.
I think it is. I'm pretty sure it is. They would have said if it weren't. So when you say globalization, what does that mean?
Well, engineers and computer science, software developers are coming from other countries. Hired here, but they have to do that later.
But that's not.
But this is degrees.
Yes.
Degrees. Well, degrees in most instructors. Yeah.
So why would women not choose I think a computer science degree is maybe versus
I think media probably. You know, the globalization and the discussion of outsourcing and stuff, people don't see that as a viable career.
Right.
Yeah, I suspect that this trend would be the same for all populations.
It's not.
But when you put this up here, I can't point.
I know it's really hard to explore
But
it.
it's 20.5%. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
The last one. But so.
This is 14. This is 20.
Okay, but what that's suggesting then is that the other 80% are earned by men.
Right.
So that's not this isn't the numbers, which is saying that the total numbers of degrees has gone down. That may or may not be true.
Right.
But it's
The percentage of women obtaining
so that
those.
doesn't seem to jive with what you're suggesting.
No, right. I mean, overall, it seems like another perspective would be if you considered this a range of STEM careers. In other fields of STEM, women are increasing. So if the number is constant of women over the years, computer science is losing their interest, but they're going into other fields that may be attracting them more so. So I think even another question is to say, why aren't we attracting more women to STEM careers so that the distribution is
Yes,
lower?
overall STEM careers we're taking in underrepresented overall, without a doubt. And because of that, we're having to import engineers and so on and so forth from other countries. But this to me is really huge. And I think a lot of it is marketing. You know, if we think about what marketing means, what does marketing mean to you? It means every brochure, every poster, every TV show, every magazine, everything. And there's sort of like this odd little backlash I mean, I think our policies right now show it as just as well.
My wife and I came out of school at the same time, and we both joined IBM at the same time. And there's a certain amount of comfort in joining a big company where they actually, at that time, gave us education. You look at those years, you saw the decline of large company hiring, the rise of the little teeny companies and the startups. You know, startups demand to have education be supplied to them. They don't educate you. It's most attractive for a population to take that risk of earning a degree and not having a job. You don't know what's going to happen. It's much easier, as with my wife, who was in economics, come out, IBM offered her a job. Just slide right into it and they'll educate you. So I almost think there's something about the timing that resonates because of education and where it's being supplied in this whole process.
That goes along with your 90, the women will have to know 90% or what, more than 50%
yeah, that could be.
to accept something. So if they don't feel like they're confident enough to apply for the job, or so they won't choose.
Or even apply to school,
yeah.
Which means that it has to start way before. You know, this has to happen. We don't start this in college. We don't start this in high school. We start this in, Perkins can go down to 7th grade. So let's start there. I'd be happy if they let me start, in the OBGYN's office. Like, let's change the posters here. I mean, really. And okay, so here's like a really bizarre example of what we're doing to our children. And there's a couple of slides I got to show, but everyone's seen Legos, right? Well, now they have Legos for girls. No. Have you seen them?
Yeah, I just read it. There was just an article about it in the New York Times or something just about this.
And what did it say? It pisses me off. Why? Too much debris.
That was the question, was why do we have to pay? Because boys ask for Legos and girls don't, and so that's the niche. The article said that was the niche marketing.
I don't care that they're pink. I couldn't care less. Pink engineers rock my world. I bought a house and it's a little money pit, so I learned how to do all sorts of things that I never wanted to learn how to do, like sheet rock and lay floors. My tools and my tool belt and everything are hot pink. First of all, I like hot pink, and second of all, no contractor will steal your tools. I was always because my husband and my brother are both contractors. They rip off my stuff all the time. So I spray painted everything hot pink. So now you gotta lose anything anymore. Okay, so I'm totally down with hot pink engineering. You don't build with girls' Legos. You snap together a few pieces and you go shopping. You snap together a few pieces and you go to the horse and you ride a horse. We're dumbing down girls to a degree that is so shocking to me. Are you kidding? I mean, Legos are like the coolest toy ever. But they're even dumbing down for boys. The Legos are even dumbing down with boys in order to market more of them. So they're selling them as, a ship. So you build a ship. Now the kids don't think, I'm going to take it apart and build a rocket ship. So it's just stupid. But anyway, okay. Okay. So back to the data on. This is your computer science here, and all the other degrees. Well, I think there's really computer science here. The girls are doing better in computer science A and the same as computer science B on the AP the advanced placement test. And yet they're not going to college to get the degree. There's clearly a break in that pipeline. And I'm guessing that if we took this, and I don't have this data by ethnicity, but I'm guessing we would have the same thing. Now in the next workshop, we're going to talk about something called stereotype threat and micromessages and all those kinds of things. And stereotype threat is when we go in and we take a test, and the stereotype is that blacks aren't as smart as whites. And a black person and a white person go and take the test, and the first thing they ask is, what's your ethnicity? The blacks go, oh my God, I'm going to confirm the stereotype. A girl goes in and takes it next to a boy, same thing. A white boy goes in and takes it next to an Asian boy, his grade's going to drop. The crazy part is the group that is not stereotyped, their grades actually are elevated by the stereotype threat.
But haven't they done tests also that show that if you walk in and they give you some data like African Americans actually do 80% better than even if it's false information, that all of their scores go up?
Yep. Stereotypes that is so easily overcome. Most of this stuff is so easily or it's just not a test of your intelligence. That's all they really have to say. Or simply just not ask the question of gender, ethnicity, age, second language, anything that has the connotation of a stereotype, because we don't always know what stereotypes a child is functioning under or a student is functioning under. So don't ask the questions until the end of the test. And say, this isn't measuring your intelligence. This is just, a measure of, I'm going to make something up. And it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. The book is called Whistling Vivaldi, one of the best educational books. I have it on my Kindle so I can read it every day. Okay, so Nathan STEM Equity Pipeline, highly recommend it. If your school is not part of it, it's a whopping $100 a year, and it has every resource known to mankind, half of which I ripped off and put in here, with their blessing. Okay, so in your packet of information, what time is this over? 11:30?
11:20.
Oh, goodness. Okay, you have 4 easy steps. I'm going to go through this mind-bendingly fast. These are the steps students need to take in order to get a job. How many of you know students who choose their career based on Tuesday, Thursday schedule, or I got the classes, or my boyfriend, girlfriend is in there, whatever. Okay, so they need a fiscal goal, they need to understand their knowledge, what they like, what they don't like, they need to understand the labor market, and then they need to make a plan. Okay? Really great resource. Insight tells you 158 counties, 156 family configurations, how much it costs to live in, say, San Francisco. 3 different counties. So parent information, San Francisco, Fresno, Sacramento, and Ventura. Big difference. $23 an hour, $25, $26 an hour. Same thing as the kids get older. No child care. Anyone pay child care? Crazy. These are just great resources. California labor market information is available on Labor Market Info. Everybody ought to go there. Every teacher ought to go there. Every student ought to go there. They ought to understand their own career choice. If the career is great, gaining in numbers versus waning in numbers. You all need to go there and find out what the labor market is looking for, who they're looking for.
Does it predict what's going to be happening in the next
Yes.
5 to 6 days?
Yes. Yeah. And if you have an issue with it, then you can call them up, because every county has their own person that you work with specifically. So if you can say, hey, this doesn't look right for my county and my area or what have you, then they have specific information for your region. They're regional specialists. Okay. Students with disabilities, big issue. Most likely to get a degree and the least likely to get a job. Why do you think that is?
When they walk in, they have a disability, and that's what people say.
They have a disability, but it could be lots of other disabilities. I mean, it could be unseen. I think that there's something greater than that. I think we forgot to teach them how to be self-advocates. I think we really need to be concrete. I think we have to do it with women. I think we need to do it with Hispanics and blacks and so on and so forth, and I think we have to do it with students with disabilities. They have to, it's that same thing, I'll apply for a job if I know 95%. There's already this barrier there. So I think they lack self-confidence. I think there is, employers have barriers to hiring them, so work with the employers, provide early access, give them internships, things like that that are really important. Displaced homemakers, I think the #1 barrier for a displaced homemaker is to overcome their what? Their fear of? But what is it above and beyond everything else? I think there's 2 really big fears, particularly for women. Computers? What? Be rejected, but computers, I think I'm going to break a computer, right? How many times do you have women come in and they're like, I'm going to break it. Like, just don't drink your coffee there, you're good. You know? And that fear of, like, this is my identity. I've been a mom. I wear mom jeans and my hair in a ponytail for 12 years. What do I know about working in the wheat field, you know? Okay, ELL, English Language Learners, ESL, LEP, isolation, lack of computers. And I really think this is where we can make a lot of inroads by working with families, by working with community organizations, by working with houses of worship, all these kinds of areas that they have more influence sometimes than we do, so we can work with them and say, you know, and I don't care what the age is, I think that if you work with these folks, how many of your students do you think that we're talking about have role models and support systems in place? Yeah, 0. So that's what we really need to be, and I really think that holds true with particularly early students. You know, it's that we need to become that. And so when we think of, you know, here's my barrier, here's my deficit, building that up, building that up, building that up. Okay, we talked a lot about, you know, all this kind of stuff. Economically disadvantaged, you know, all about. Okay, so non-traditional by gender. Okay, so I gave you a little quiz that I didn't have you take, but as you're looking at it, as you leave, as you go forward, look at it and think from the framework of equity and barriers, not that you are actually you're not actually being inequitable, is that even the right word, intentionally, but think in terms of from the other person's perspective. These are the things that they're going to see and look at. We know by doing research that when women are speaking, we look at our watches more often. We've done research. We watch it. We see it. We time it. I don't wear a watch because of it. Because I don't know if I was doing it, but I sure as heck didn't want to. So I just stopped wearing a watch during workshops. So all of these kinds of things, and if you can't do it yourself, read, go online and Google Steele Claude. He's the one that wrote Whistling Vivaldi and Stereotype Threat. Some of the best information out there, and there's some really great stuff online about it. Well, you guys hate 50-minute workshops. Hate them. Okay. Just trying to see if there's anything that I'm just, okay. So we do have online at the JSPAC.org website, JSPAC.org. We have two, one is 12 minutes, one is 15 minutes, like webinar kind of things that will go into and give you a plethora of different resources. It's out. It's not coming next November. It's out now. And if you have any more, if you want any more information, we are out of time, and I apologize. We have tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of resources. And you have my phone number and email, which I am around and about.
Here's your sign in. I'm not sure if everyone.
Thank you. Did everybody get a chance to sign in? Nope. Okay. And I also have a little pack of information, just some resources. So thank you very much, and I apologize that it's just a short workshop.